On a crisp spring morning in 1990, the Kerze household in Eagan, Minnesota, hummed with the quiet familiarity of routine. The air outside carried the last chill of winter, while the budding trees whispered promises of warmer days. Inside, Jim Kerze was away on a business trip, leaving his wife Lonnie to shepherd their 3 sons through the morning. 17-year-old Christopher, the eldest, approached his mother with a complaint, a headache that dulled his usual bright. He asked to stay home from school, an unusual request for a boy known for his diligence. Christopher was no ordinary teenager. He was a National Merit Scholar semifinalist, a varsity swimmer, and a clarinet player. With a sharp mind and a dry sense of humor, Lonnie, trusting her son's judgment, handed him some pain medication. She kissed his forehead and left for her job at the local elementary school. She had no inkling that this fleeting moment would mark the last time she'd see him. When Lonnie returned that afternoon, the house felt eerily off-kilter. The family's 1988 Dodge Caravan was missing from the driveway, and their dog B.W. Bowser roamed the yard unleashed. A sight as jarring as it was rare. Her pulse quickened as she stepped inside, calling Christopher's name into the stillness. No answer came in the kitchen. A note in his familiar scrawl waited on the counter. "Mom, something important came up with feeling somewhat better. Back by 6, unless I get lost. Love, Chris." The word "lost" was underlined twice, a nod to his novice driving skills that had long been a family jest. But as 6 o'clock slipped by with no sign of him, that playful underline began to cast a shadow far darker than anyone could have imagined. Jim raced home from his trip, and together they pieced together the fragments of an unfolding nightmare. They dialed friends, hoping for a simple explanation, but no one had seen Christopher. At midnight, they called the police, only to be told they must wait 24 hours before reporting him missing, a rule that stretched their fraying nerves to the breaking point. The next day, as they finally filed the report, the mail delivered a blow that stole their breath. A letter postmarked from Duluth, 2 hours from Eagan, bore Christopher's handwriting. In it he confessed to faking his illness to take the van and vanish to not even I know where. He wrote of intending to end his life, apologizing for the pain he'd caused. "Take heart," he urged, "because if just one person is better off for having known me, my life will not have been wasted." The words shattered Jim and Lonnie. They knew his script, his phrasing, but the despair within was a stranger to them. Christopher had always been thoughtful, introverted, yet steady, with a tight-knit group of friends and a future brimming with promise. Jim had noticed a recent quietness, a subtle retreat he'd chalked up to teenage brooding, but nothing hinted at this depth of anguish. Then came more chilling discoveries. Jim's of Mossberg & Son's 20-gauge shotgun was gone from its place, though the ammunition remained untouched. Christopher had withdrawn $200 from his savings that day. 2 days later, the van surfaced abandoned on a lonely road near the George Washington State Forest in Itasca County, some 20 miles from Grand Rapids. The keys rested inside alongside a note identifying the vehicle's owners. Search teams descended, dogs weaving through the dense woods, tracing a scent a mile in before it vanished into thin air. No tracks, no signs, no answers. The forest swallowed its secrets, leaving the Kerzes grasping at hope. As weeks bled into months, an eerie pattern emerged. Strange phone calls began haunting their home and that of their neighbor, Christopher's best friend. The line would crackle with the din of a party, laughter, music, life, but no voice ever answered their pleas. When they spoke, the caller hung up. For 6 months, these silent intrusions persisted, each one a fragile thread tethering Jim and Lonnie to the belief that their son was out there alive, reaching for them in a way they could not fathom. Then, as abruptly as they'd begun, the calls stopped. leaving a void that echoed louder than the noise ever had. Time marched on, scattering faint leads like leaves in the wind. A hunter found a gun in rural Minnesota, matching the missing shotgun's description, but its link to Christopher remained unproven. Someone claimed to have met him in Old Orchard Beach, Maine, a whisper of hope that dissolved under scrutiny. In 2004, an anonymous letter arrived, its words both tender and taunting. It called Christopher a guardian angel, urging the police to cease their search, promising he'd return when ready. Investigators deemed it a hoax, but for Jim and Lonnie, it was another cut in a wound that refused to heal. Through it all, the Kerzes clung to faith in their son, in his survival, in the possibility of reunion. They moved homes but kept their old phone number, a beacon for Christopher should he ever dial it. They poured their hearts into video pleas, Lonnie, voice trembling with unbroken love. We have never stopped loving you, never stopped missing you, never stopped praying for you. Come on home. Nani. Jim, too, spoke of their relentless quest for answers in a 2016 interview. Resolution is a funny thing. We aren't going to know anything about what happened to Christopher until one day when we know everything. So the idea here is to generate enough noise so that we can begin to find resolution. Christopher's face flickered across screens in Soul Asylum's Runaway Train music video, one of dozens of missing children spotlighted in its haunting frames. Of those, he remains one of 10 never found. His story, a poignant thread in a tapestry of loss and longing. The police lean toward suicide as the likeliest end, pointing to the letter, the gun, the van, the vans. Desolate resting place. Yet, Jim and Lonnie hold a different truth close, in the absence of evidence to the contrary. You have to, Jim said. He is your son. Today, the case lingers open, a quiet ache in Minnesota's history. Whether Christopher Kerze chose to vanish into the unknown or met a fate beyond his control, his absence carved a permanent mark on those who loved. The note on the kitchen counter, with its casual promise and underlined jest, remains a riddle unsolved. A single line that launched a decades-long search for a boy who, in his own words, might simply have gotten lost. For Jim and Lonnie, the waiting endures. A testament to a love that time cannot dim. A hope that one day, against all odds, their son might find his way back home.